Okay, welcome to Firefighting Today, the weekly roundtable show that talks about all sorts of things fire service related. Tonight we happen to be talking about fog nozzles, smoothbore nozzles, or does it really matter? So we're going to solve the greatest debate in the fire service, or at least one of the greatest debates in the fire service. We got a pretty good panel for you tonight, and we're going to get started. We do remind you, if you are watching live on YouTube, feel free to use to leave a YouTube comment. You're able to interact with the panel. If you leave a YouTube comment, we're able to bring that right up on screen and get you to interact with the panel. Before we do introduce the panel today, it is with really a very, very heavy heart that we do this hangout tonight. I believe the fire service has lost a tremendous leader. As of Friday of this week, the editor emeritus of Firehouse magazine, a longtime fire chief, just someone who has done some amazing things for the American Fire Service. We lost Harvey, and I thought it was appropriate that we would just put something up and at least take a moment to remember Harvey Eisner tonight. I would be strongly remiss if we did not mention Harvey tonight. Excuse me. So, with that, let's introduce the panel. I'll start, and we'll take it from there. So, okay. I am Peter Lamb. I am the author of PeteLamb.com, retired fire chief, and I am also the host of the Firefighter Training Podcast. Let's start down at the end. Adam, say hello.
Good evening, everyone. Adam Ganley, coming from Kellogg, Iowa. I'm on the Kellogg Volunteer Fire Department CAP.
Great. Charlie.
Good evening, everyone. Charlie Hall, Deputy Chief, TF Green Airport, Providence, Rhode Island.
Ethan, say hello.
Hi, Pete. Ethan Bansick, Lorraine, Ohio.
All right. Frank.
Frank Blackley, Assistant Chief, Wilmington, North Carolina Fire Department.
Good to have you here, Frank. Thank you for being here. Joe.
Joe Starnes, Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department, Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Also project manager for Project Kill the Flashover, and do a little work as joestarnes.com. So thank you for having me, Chief. And let me say, anything that we do of any significance tonight, I think Harvey Eisner ought to be the man that we talk about. Thank you for recognizing him. He was a dear friend.
Absolutely. I agree. Kevin, say hello.
Hi, Pete. I'm Kevin Burns, Deputy Fire Chief up here in Framingham, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. Ethan didn't say it tonight, so I'm going to say it. I'm a student of the trade.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all are. Ren, certainly not last but not least. Certainly. Rob, say hello.
Good evening, everybody. Rob Fling, Assistant Chief with the Dix Hills Fire Department on Long Island, Firefighter Toolbox contributor, as well as Facebook.
All right. Great. All right. So here's the essence. We all know the argument. We throw in the light of the UL studies, and so we talk about fog streams. We talk about, I guess you could say, straight stream, which is a stream from a fog nozzle, and we talk about smoothbore nozzles. And as you go through the fire service, you will see this argument. One is absolutely better than the next. One is, I always use, or I never use, or all of those sorts of arguments. So I thought we'd get a feel for what's going on. I think the first question going down the panel, I'll start with you, Rob, is what is on your truck? No opinions, right? We don't have any opinions right now. Just tell me what's on your truck right now, what's in use in your department right now, and then we'll talk about philosophy in a minute. So, Rob, what do you well, first of all, let me just say that in North Attleboro, where I was, we were two pre-connected Matterdales, right? Two Matterdale lays typically on each pumper. 150 and a 200, and we had a fog nozzle on one, and we had a smooth bore nozzle on the other. So I had both nozzles available. Length of the line changed, but I had both nozzles available, and that was where I was. So Rob, where are you?
We basically run the same setup. All the cars and trucks are pre-connects, one with a smooth bore, one with a TFT. Off the front bumper for the car pack is a TFT, and off the rear step, for long stretches, the deuce and a half and the inch and 3/4 are both with smooth bores.
All right, the 2.5 is smooth bore. I was going to ask about that because we were also, the 2.5 was typically a smooth bore as well. Kevin, what are you running? What's on the apparatus?
Feed almost exclusively automatics all the way around, pre-connects, except for the deuce and a half in the back, which has a smooth bore nozzle with an inch and a quarter tip.
Okay. That's pretty common. It's either inch and a quarter or inch and an eighth. Inch and an eighth is also a very common tip size for the 2.5 as well. Joe, what are you running on Oak Grove?
They're running two cross lays. They're running combination nozzles in the. They're all combination, I guess the best way to say it. The 2.5, the long stretch, the jump line on the front. They're all combination fogs.
All right, good enough. Frank, what are you running in your organization?
We are primarily using combination nozzles on our engines, both inch and 3/4 and 2.5.
Okay, combination on both. Good. Ethan, do you know what's being run up there?
Yeah, Pete, two Matty Dales, one smooth, one fog. Our bumper line is fog, and our top bed is smooth bore with 15/16.
Okay, and you also are sort of familiar with a pretty large city, Columbus. What's going on down there in the city of Columbus?
I know they have a fog bumper line. Their top bed is smooth bore 15/16, and I'm not positive on what their cross lays are.
All right. Charlie, we're talking about your historical perspective. Don't tell me about foam lines and turrets. No, let's not go crash on me now. When you were chief, what were you running?
2.5 cross lay with a smooth bore tip, inch and a quarter. Tack lines off the rear, 3 TFTs.
TFTs, all right. And Adam, what are you running out there in Kellogg?
We got combination fog on cross lays and a combination on our 2.5.
Okay. So the question is, the panel's got a variety of things. We're kind of stacking up in a couple of different areas. Is one, let me just ask, I mean, is one wrong? Is there one better than another? And let's just start the premise that we're talking about structural firefighting. We're talking about interior structural firefighting. Let's stay out of the commercial realm for just a minute. Let's talk about structural house fires, residential, could be apartments, occupied multiple dwellings. So let's just lay our premise out for what we're talking about. So let's get some opinions. Is there a right or a wrong? Now, we know there are some major cities. There are some pretty large cities with a ton of fire experience. They are pretty strong proponents of smoothbore nozzles. So anybody want to just unmute and dive into this conversation? Is there a reason that you want to use one or the other, and what are your thoughts? All right, I'm going to pick on Rob. He made eye contact, so it's always a mistake.
I don't know if I would say one is right and one is wrong. I've put fires out with both. But I'll leave it to Mr. Starnes for the science behind it.
No, he's yelling uncle already.
We can only ask him in the last 15 minutes.
What about is there an application that when would you use one over the other, Rob? Maybe that's the better question, right? Well, instead of saying what's right and what's wrong, when would you pull that smooth bore versus the fog in your world?
For interior, our SOPs dictate it's a smooth.
Say it again. I lost the tail end. A smooth bore?
Anything interior is a smoothbore, yes.
Anything interior attack is a smoothbore. All right, that's an interesting. That's a hard and fast policy. Well, with that's going to cause some discussion. We can talk about that for sure. We got a few viewers, so I just want to take a minute, if you don't mind. Let's just take a minute and talk about that. So if you are watching us live on YouTube, if you leave a YouTube comment, we can interact with you. We can bring you right into the panel and get some discussion from you, so you can actually be part of the panel discussion. So feel free. If you are watching us on YouTube and want to dive into the stream, feel free to do so. Okay. Kevin, what preference? Your 2.5 is the only smoothbore, I think you said. You were mostly combination. Is there a preference for smoothbore or fog nozzle? If you were king, right? So you're running a shift. If you were king, would you make any changes, or would you stay the way you are, Kevin?
Yeah, we've had pretty good luck with these automatic nozzles. We had Elcott when I first got on, a few years back, and we've migrated to task force tips. Like Rob said, I've put fires out with both, but we're running 2-inch lines up here, and with that task force tip automatic we got now, we can consistently get 180 to 200 gallons a minute out of it, which we check with a flow meter, by the way, which I think is a good thing, a good tip to pass along to the audience. Make sure you know what you're flowing. But we've had good luck with the automatics, so I'm not sure I'd change. But if we pull the 2.5, we're looking for big water. I would not have an automatic nozzle on a 2.5 because of the additional nozzle pressure, and just wanting that 1.25 tip. No, I'm getting 300 gallons a minute if I need it. Big fire, big water.
Okay, all right, that's reasonable enough. So we're starting to frame up some. Kevin's point, if I want a lot of water and I want a little bit lower nozzle pressure, and I'm talking about volume, maybe that smoothbore has some merit for me. I like the fact that they're using 2-inch lines, and again, I would reiterate to the audience, one of my pet peeves is clearly not pumping lines correctly. I believe I've seen it too many times where people do not pump pressure, put adequate pump discharge pressure, and they estimate a flow. Oh, I'm getting 180 gallons a minute. Well, the reality is, if you don't have a flow meter, you may not even really know what you're getting or what have you. Frank, you want to dive in? Any purpose for using that smoothbore? You're very much a combination organization. Any thoughts on using that smoothbore?
We do have them in the trucks, and obviously we're going to use them for our master streams, and then I think we've got some of them in our high-rise packs. That because obviously if you want the reach and penetration, you're going to need to go with the smoothbore versus the fog nozzles for the most part. You were just talking about making sure whether or not you were getting the proper GPMs, and we just purchased some new hose, and it's there at 1.75 inches, but as you pump it, it obviously expands, and which is reducing our friction loss. And we haven't been doing some testing to figure out, well, what should the correct pump panel pressure be for the rating of the nozzle, and it's really requiring us to change the whole way we're thinking, and making sure that we're not pumping too much that can cause problems for the person on the nozzle.
Right. You obviously, safety, firefighter safety is a key here. Obviously, what, if you don't mind, Frank, what brand of hose are you using?
We're actually switching to some of the. We're switching to more of the Elcott low pressure nozzles, just to begin using those versus some of the, I guess, the task force tips, the automatic nozzles.
Okay. All right. It makes sense. Charlie, any comments about smoothbore versus fog opinions now? We're in the opinion phase. You're muted, Charlie. Just unmute your mic.
No. Always been a proponent the 7/8" smoothbore tip on an 1 3/4 line, the indirect fire attack. As Rob stated, and I think Frank said it too, and maybe Kevin, I've put out fires with both. Great degree of success being next to the nozzle man as a lieutenant, watching the indirect attack with a smoothbore nozzle as the OVM took out the window and watched a room and contents fire go out faster than I would have ever thought possible doing that.
Okay.
Absolutely love smoothbore.
Yeah, no, yes or no?
I love it.
Okay. Well, I think, I've been forestalling this too long. Now that we have invoked the term indirect attack, I think I got to do it, Joe. You can avoid me all you want, Joe, but I think we got to go now. I think you got to weigh in here. So, Joe, is it a smoothbore nozzle? Do you have a preference, Joe?
Well, I've got two things I want to tell you, and I'm gonna try something.
All right.
Give me a second.
You're not starting a fire, are you, Joe?
No, I believe I just did with the question.
I don't know if you can read this. I got two written things to show you.
All right.
Can you read that right there?
Yeah, use what you train with. I like it. Use what you train with. That's important. I think that's huge. Yeah, and it is not the nozzle, it's the water. Absolutely. I think those are two great points. Let's talk a little bit about the impact of how you're applying water, Joe. And let me make a statement, and I want you to respond to my statement. I would tell you that a lot of my fire training in the old days back on stone tablets was you'd cross the threshold and you'd probably put a 30-degree fog pattern, a narrow fog, and you'd go in and you'd cool some atmosphere and you'd go in and you put out the fire and then drop down and hit the fire and do what you have to do. And that was really my school of thought. As we begin to talk about whatever you're using, Joe, how has science maybe given us some hints on where we should be applying water when we talk about neutral plane or any of those things? Let's talk a little bit about preconditioning. I think it's time to raise those issues. So can you address some of that?
Well, one of the things that I have learned in the last 6 years with just playing around with some really smart people and listening to them talk and watch is we learned the fact that air is a very important part of what we manage when we put fires, try to extinguish fires. Then what we do with that air, both intake air and exhaust gases, is important to know. So we've learned that if things don't off-gas, they don't create heat, and then they don't burn behind us. In the burn that you were at on the 18th, one of the comments from Lieutenant Dixon was that using an enhanced stream and condition as he went, behind him was cool. He never felt any heat behind him ever. That's just a sign that you're stopping the off-gassing on the back side. We ought to worry about how we use the stream in the flow path. It might necessarily be that you need more gallons per minute and you need to deliver them farther away. It might mean that you need a small particle with a large surface area that you're trying to access the fire compartment, and you need to have the cooling of those gases above you because you don't have anything else but those gases, and you're not at the fire compartment. Then that droplet is absolutely critical, and the speed of that droplet is even critical. So, if you put an agent in it, people argue with the agent messes that up. I don't think so. I've run agent at .1 of 1% all the way to .5 in gas cooling. I'm not getting those problems that people are talking about yet. But that's just me to this point. So if I look at all that stuff, it really is what you train on, how you control the flow path, how you control the heat. If you've got a plan to control the temperature in the path that you're accessing, and you got a plan to get a stream inside the fire compartment without you being in the fire compartment, and I say that loudly, then you've got a plan, whether you're using a solid bore, a straight stream, or a combination fog.
Excellent. Excellent stuff. That's exactly where I wanted you to go. Let's hear from Robbie. Robbie's out here. Good to have Robbie here. Robbie, you might just put in the chat after, if you're available. We got a spot. We can actually bring you into the panel if you want. But Robbie's talking about we run the Metro fixed gallon fog, smooth bore, and Vindicator nozzle on a 3 cross lays. Smooth bore on the 2.5 and Metro fixed gallon fog on the bumper line, smooth bore on the high rise packs. And I think high rise packs are really changing in the course of my career. Now we've got the breakaway nozzles. Now you've got some options. You've really got some technology has caught up with us and really given us some options that maybe we didn't have before. Just a comment for Joe. Tim says, "Amen, Joe." So he is. Tim Lasley is right with you. Thank you, Tim, for being back with us. Tim was on sabbatical a little bit, so great to have him with us again tonight. I appreciate it. So, what are you doing? So Joe says, what nozzle do you train with? How often do we train with our nozzle use? If you don't have to go far, you can look at the University of YouTube and take a look at how people are using nozzles, how they handle nozzles, how they deal with it. What do you think of your nozzle use in your department? Is it effective, and how often are you training on that, the nozzle itself? So let's separate that a little bit. You're talking about hand lines, but also the nozzle work itself. Rob?
The nozzle itself, rather easy, obviously on and off. But, I'm a big proponent of I watch the nozzle guy, because when the nozzle's in the armpit, that's, like you said, you have your pet peeves, that's my pet peeve. When the nozzle man's not holding the line right and it's not out in front of him, that's mine.
All right, so let's talk about that, because there are people listening from all. I'm not talking to anyone here on the panel because we know this, but my preference has always been that you get. It's hard to demonstrate. You get about 18 inches of hose out in front of you so that you can capture the bale, but you've got some reach out in front of you. It's very easy to maneuver that nozzle. You're able to control back pressure a little bit easier. And the nozzle man, the backup man, has some options to do that. So I was in a department where people fought for and asked for pistol grips on nozzles, and it was not my cup of tea. But there is something for everybody. To go back to what Joe says, it's whatever you choose to work with. Kevin, what do you think about your nozzle work? Do you have any pet peeves when the nozzle man's working? Let's go down that path.
Yeah, Pete, I'd echo what Rob said. In fact, I'm searching for a picture. If I can find it, I'll try to screen share it of a good technique with the nozzle. And everything you said. Pistol grips, which we have, and when that guy has it buried on his hip, it bothers me too. So I'm not sure I can add to anything, because everything you said is what I would say.
All right, let's go all the way down the panel. Adam, let's talk a little bit about, so you've got limited resources in many cases, a small department. What do you do to train the nozzle folks? It may be difficult for you to do that. What are you doing for nozzle training, and how do you get it done, Adam?
Well, our training isn't all the greatest here, but when we do train, just what Rob said, get that nozzle out, arm lengths away, so that way you're not using your body to turn that nozzle, and be able to, turn it with the hand and not with your body. But they do pretty good. I just went to a class not too long ago, and actually one of the instructors hit me up and told me get that nozzle out in front of you. So what I was teaching them what to do, I was actually not doing it myself. So yeah, that's one thing that we work on, is getting that nozzle out, arm length away.
All right. Charlie, any pet peeves for the nozzle person?
Not a big fan of pistol grips either, Pete. And just echoing what the others have said, when you've got the guy with the nozzle in his radio pocket right up against his body, you know he doesn't have control of it. I would eliminate, if I was king, I'd eliminate all the pistol grips and teach proper application technique, clockwise rotation, so forth. Using something Joe said rang a bell with me and talking about the science of it and everything else and the size of the water droplets and the BTUs they absorb and using the walls and the floor and the ceiling to your advantage as a giant sprinkler system. Again, as you can see, I'm a big fan of the indirect attack because I've seen it work so well. But your pet peeve is just someone that goes in and just tries to blast at the base of the flames without really thinking about what they're doing. And a lot of that's inexperience. That comes with practice.
Yeah, I agree. Joe, you and I had a little conversation when I was down visiting, and I think Charlie just alluded to it. Do you want to talk about the effect or the impact of a broken stream, if you don't mind? Because Charlie was talking about, bouncing off walls, bouncing off ceilings. You and I actually got to chat with a young firefighter about that. Do you want to add something to that, or would you add something to that if you could?
You're talking about the droplets and the gas cooling, or is that what you're talking about, Chief?
Yeah. In other words, Charlie's saying, bounce it off the ceiling and the walls, and that's a common technique that's bandied about in fire service circles all the time. What am I doing to the, I'm creating a broken stream, if you will. It's not a fog stream, it's a broken stream. What am I doing? Is that the most effective? Is there a better way? What are your thoughts on that?
The solid stream, let's say with a solid bore nozzle versus a solid stream in a combination or fog nozzle, you really got a couple of views there. The concept for me is, it doesn't take much water in residential compartments to put out fires in those compartments. When we actually do it in the test, we rarely flow more than about 40 gallons. And we, I think you saw when we used the piercing nozzle on one, what we had. We had 15 seconds or 23 gallons or something, and then we went back for another 15 seconds. We didn't have much at all. The concept about like a solid bore banking it off a double bank, the guys who do this on this panel probably are way more experienced with a solid stream than me. For me, the simple thing is if I got to define that problem. I got to define that flow path. I've got to manage that flow path, and then that flow path, if I got to access, make some turns, and get to the fire compartment, that firefight in that access path is a lot different than the firefight where the combustion and the polarization and the flames are actually generated, where the gas started. Those are two different things. So if I want to get to a place and you're fighting fire, you've got to talk in context of the way you train. If you're opening the door and having air in the bottom and overpressure flow out the top, then you better use the nozzle differently than if you're using it with a curtain and you've got it plugged off and you're just sealing that and you've got smoke storage there. So if I'm in smoke storage, I'm going to talk about starting at about the neutral plane level and pulsing and checking and moving and conditioning as I go, and then I'm going to go around, including the carpet. We know that the carpet off-gases when the neutral plane hits about 48 inches off the floor. We start to see some early off-gassing and some cheap carpet. We're getting fuel right from the floor at that point, and you need to stop that. You need to cut that off. So the things of where we put the nozzle, they used to train me. I love the way you said it back when they were chipping on stones. They used to train me to take a fog nozzle and go in a window and they used the term, in the South, they used the term whoop it. It was like a cattail. You got about 3 feet or so or 2 foot in front of you. Most of the time we were in cotton duck and a plastic Carnes helmet with very little ear protection, and we just get low and get in the corner of the window, and often we would get in the corner of the window where the air intake was. because the out, we didn't know what it was at the time, but there was a corner left that the air was going in. And what we didn't know then was that corner is the shortest distance to the fire. If I've got a high velocity smoke coming out of that, where that corner is, that's the side the fire's on. We used to stick it in there and what we call whoop it. All right, that was the fire compartment for the most part. If I'm accessing down a hallways, we used to try to flow our way in and cool as we go. And there's some people in very high places are going to have a coronary at this next statement. They're going to be sure they send the white bus to come get Joe. But when you stick a straight stream in a high thermal on an access path, that is not the most effective place to bring that cooling down. Now, water will cool. I don't care. That's the reason I said it's not the nozzle. It is the stream. It's what's in the stream, and it's where you place the stream. It takes very little water. We've been adding hoses and putting more gallons per minute and moving in residential structure fires. We're not talking commercial, and fire loads are commercial. But we've been adding water and more gear, trying to walk our way into the furnace. We don't have to do that. So the bottom line is we need to know a little bit about our tools, and we need to know a lot about our science, and we better learn what we're doing. If we're accessing that flow path, we better manage that flow path. I don't know when you want to hit the stop button. You tell me. But,
all right, leave it there for a minute because I'm not done with you. We're going to get some more out of you, but let's shift gears a little bit. That was great stuff. Kevin, great picture. Do you want to comment on that picture? That's a real good picture right there, and that's somebody using a smoothbore nozzle. But in terms of the position, we're not talking about right or wrong, but in terms of the position. So, Kevin, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Pete, I've had this for a while. I like it. It just shows how that line is out in front of you, that nozzle is out in front of you. His left hand could actually even be a little further back towards his body, but you want that out there away from you. And Rob made a point in the chat room about the backup man, and I'd like to just comment on that. That backup man, his shoulder is going to be right joined with that nozzle man's shoulder, or maybe back to back, depending on how it works, but no space between the backup man and the nozzle man. Take all the pressure off him, so that all he has to do is control that last 18 inches of hose with the nozzle and move it around, so he can move it up, down, side to side, and even back over your head if you got something going on behind you. So anyway, I just wanted to share that in case that would help put a visual.
No, great stuff. I want to shift gears. Let's go down to Ethan. Ethan, you study, you research, you're in all the websites. What are you hearing? How do you frame this debate, Ethan, as a student of the trade? You've heard a lot of sides to this. I'd be curious to get your opinion.
Well, Pete, one of the things that I've been hearing is smoothbore is just going to give you that more reach and penetration, and that's why we're using it on 2.5s, because we need that big fire, big water mentality. Again, when we're using fog stream, we're training air into that, and that's why we use it for hydraulic ventilation, because it's going to push the smoke out. But again, great discussion, and it just comes down to the basic thing again, that water still puts out fire. However it's applied, either what stuff on the red stuff, it's still going to go out.
All right. Yeah, I think the rate of application counts, but good. That's a good summary. Ethan, if you don't mind, if you could do something quick for me, because I'm going to send Joe off again. I'm going to see if I can light the fuse one more time. Ethan, can you find me a picture of a piercing nozzle, inch and a half, inch and 3/4 piercing nozzle, if
Sure.
you can find that. What are you telling your troops, Rob, about the stuff that we're hearing now? Do you have a new SOP? Are you training recruits differently? What are you doing about some of the stuff that Joe said? One of my pet peeves for a long, long time, long before I knew what I was talking about, not that I do now, but when I was saying some things that were correct probably by accident, and I was a big proponent of getting the reach of a stream. we do not have to be in the fire compartment, and I heard Joe say that loud and clear. Are you changing the way you're focusing to your troops, and if so, what are you doing, Rob?
I would say we're starting to change what we've done in the past a little bit. It's a lengthy process, and I'm sure everybody here knows that. And one of the old things is that you never open up on smoke. Well, we know now that it's perfectly okay to open up on smoke. And that's basically one of the big things that we've started to push. Sometimes you have to.
Okay. Kevin, anything you're doing different? How are you, expressing this stuff to the offices? How are you getting this out to the offices? Anything in the new members coming on? What are you doing about this new information?
Yeah, Pete, we're trying to get it out there, but very cautiously, Pete. I'll have to make a little confession here. I'm a little afraid of going too fast with the research because I don't want to turn us into an outside fire department. I know that's maybe a little bit of a sensitive remark, but there are times when we got to put the fire out, right away from the inside. And just a quick comment that Rob said, and how we have to go slowly with this. He's right, and we all understand that you don't open. It's okay now to open the nozzle on smoke, but we got to be careful. We got to qualify that's the hot, black, boiling smoke. If you stand up in front of a bunch of firemen and don't be clear about that, they're going to open it up. Maybe some of them will open it up on, light smoke where they shouldn't be opening it up. So I'm kind of wrestling with that a little bit, how to get the new technology out there, but say it in a very careful way so that, we don't open up on smoke when we shouldn't, but we open it up on smoke when it's going to flash. So anyway, that's it.
All right, Joe, I'm going to lead you in. I'm going to get a comment from the audience here, but I'm going to lead you in on a preconditioning conversation. I think that's appropriate after where we just went with Rob and Kevin. So we're going to talk a little bit about preconditioning, maybe an enhanced stream. But we got a comment from the audience. So Johnny David's here. Thanks, John. I appreciate you being there. We run 3-man engines, a captain being the backup man, but rarely do they really help, which is what their busy scanning room with the ticks. Another great conversation we could get into certainly is with the ticks. So as the pipe man, the lower pressure, nozzle reaction, etc., water are more. I think there's more to that. Let me see. More water are more friendly than the combo nozzles pumped at higher pressures for us understaffed engines. And that's, Johnny represents something I hear all the time. We can't flow what we should, and I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he's saying. What he's saying is on the board, but we can't flow what we should because we don't have enough folks. And I hear that a lot, and it's troublesome for me because I think there's ways to do something. So good comment, Johnny. I appreciate your input, and we'll see if we can stir up the discussion here in the next few minutes about that topic. So good stuff. And then another quick one from Robbie. No right or wrong. I'm a smoothbore guy, but I know every nozzle on my rig, so when I have to use it, I can. And touche, right? That's the answer, right? Pick what you need, put it in your hand when you need it. Certainly, and I think that's a great way to go, Robbie. Good stuff. So, Joe, there's a comment about put it on smoke, put it on some smoke, put it on heavy black smoke, put it on whatever. Joe, when I'm learning from this now, and much of what I'm learning from folks like you and the folks you hang around with and what have you, and that is really, I would have been slapped around if I would have been wetting furniture or operating a hose line before I got to the fire room, right? That would have certainly been a no-no in the old days. How has that changed today? And talk about preconditioning. You're telling me that as I'm crawling down a path toward a fire compartment, it's okay to spray furniture and couches? Is that what you're telling me?
I lost the audio there, but it is. If you hear me, it is one of the things we've watched and tried is the thermal imager is got to come into the tactical use of decision making on when we need to cool. That's the bottom line. There's a lot of people who don't agree with some of the things that are coming out of Kill the Flash over, but the bottom line is the tests show when we start to see gases, when we start to see gases, temperatures go away. We talk about when we should flow light smoke, no smoke. To our test, it gets down to if we start to see a neutral plane and we start to see palette temperatures, and the camera we use, especially when we see color on that camera, which is 300 degrees for that camera, we see color, water needs to be, that stream, an enhanced stream needs to be taking that temperature down. When the temperature behind you is cooler, you're doing what you need to do. The bottom line is that to answer what I heard you ask me, if I got it correctly, is we need a little more science in making the decision. I have a little presentation that I showed 4 or 5 pictures, and I said, what's the temperature? People will look at it, it'll be light gray smoke or it'll be really dark smoke, and they'll guess. And I can show them anywhere from 250 to 300 degree smoke all the way up to 1100 degree flame and smoke, and what they guess is usually wrong. The thermal imager, and learning to use the thermal imager and using the palette, not the spot. Use the spot to test things, but don't use the spot to analyze what you're actually dealing with. I think you got to add that to your repertoire to even have this discussion. We advocate, of course, enhanced water streams. We advocate thermal data to make decision. Always have an optical and a thermal view of any decision you're going to make on accessing a fire compartment. Never do that without or the air to that fire. So all those things said. Now, for instance, in storage areas, on non-directed heated storage areas of smoke, I've rarely ever seen gases in those areas above 500 degrees. And at 24 to 48 inches to the floor, you rarely see over 200 degrees stratification if it's not directly radiated or convected heat. You go into that compartment and you apply an agent on the in front of you, and you work the walls, and you'll end up bringing that temperature down in the 200 to 250 range. Also, the tick, we advocate the tick be on the officer, but one of the places that officer needs to check with that tick is the gear of his firefighters. What is the heat flux on their gear? That gear is as important to know what they're soaking up heat as the wall is that you're looking at. So those are just some of the things we talk about. See, it's not about, the thing I try to say is, we say in Kill a Flashover, we test, we demonstrate, you decide. But it's how you train and how you run your whole system. It's how many crews you have. Are you controlling the flow path? Are you getting water to it? Are you exposing? If you're exposing your firefighter's gear to greater than 500 degrees, you need to get in a meeting and work on your tactics.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I asked Ethan to do a quick one. We'll just do a quick roundtable on this one. Is anybody using or carrying a piercing nozzle? Great photo, Ethan. That's perfect. That's what I was looking for. Is anybody using a piercing nozzle? Is it just for vehicle fires? Are you using it for anything else? And what's the capability of that nozzle? What is it giving you for GPMs or anything? So let's just run the panel. Adam, do you have a piercing nozzle?
Yeah, we do have a piercing nozzle, and it's one that's overlooked, and we don't ever use it.
Okay, I was going to say don't get much use. Charlie, I know you have like a gigantic plain piercing nozzle, but on your structural days when you were in the department, any piercing nozzles on the apparatus, and when were they used?
We used the pitching nozzle, we used to call it, and it was also used in chimney fires as well, the fine spray typically connected to the old Rockwood SG60 nozzle. Modern day, haven't seen it used much, but seem to be carried on the trucks and maintained a prominent place right underneath the ladder truck with the low velocity fog applicator and the piercing nozzle mounted right there for everybody to see.
Right, right. Yeah, it was something to polish anyway, you know. Frank, are you carrying piercing nozzles? Do you use them at all?
We do carry them, and they're used, I guess, when they are needed. I mean, I've seen them used on garage doors when you can't get them raised quickly before you get a saw there. You know, basically in concealed spaces where you have difficulty getting water there.
Okay. Kevin, you carrying them, and are they used, or if so, when?
Yes, Pete. We do have one on each pump, and they're not used frequently, but they do come in handy. As Frank said, concealed spaces through a tailpipe or a headlight in motor vehicle fires. Don't forget to bring up a striking tool with you. And attic fires, we've used them. When we can't make the attic, we'll shove it up through the ceiling below.
Right, right. Rob, carrying them, and are you using them?
Don't have them.
Don't have them. Okay.
Look into.
Yeah, it's another tool. It's an interesting tool, and it has some capabilities. Joe, you might want to. I've got to bring up a couple of comments, but if you wouldn't mind talking about the test with the piercing nozzle on Saturday, just let me get a couple of comments up from Tim. Participating in 10 to 20 structure burns, they're embracing the KTF science, cool the atmosphere, control the flow path, pencil the ceiling for temps, get to the fire and put it out. So he's talking about really, he's talking about, you know, the movement toward the fire compartment, and I think that's exactly where we should now begin to be looking, is the movement to doing that. So, you know, we'll go back, and his follow-up comment to that was, that's 10 to 20 per year and using the thermal imager. So when you talk about maybe, you know, 52 weeks in a year, so every couple of weeks they're doing some burn training, that's pretty significant. I would just tell you that, you know, there's a lot of criticism about burn buildings and concrete burn buildings and 1403 and all of that. I would just say to you, with all of those things in mind, I still believe that we should try to get structural live fire training once per quarter. I think that should be a goal. I know that many departments can't do that. I think that's a goal. I get the pallets and hay. I mean, we did it at the academy. I get it. You know, there are some limitations to what you're doing, but I would recommend departments get involved with a live burn quarterly if you possibly can do that. I think, quite frankly, that's actually an NFPA 1500, but I can't swear to that. So that would be important. Joe, let's talk about what your theory was. What was the purpose of the burn on Saturday for the piercing nozzle, and what did you achieve? Did you achieve what you hoped? What was the thought process behind that?
Well, again, these are small residential compartments. As you know, Chief, and what we did was we took a burn container, and the college built 3 different ends. They built an end with a window in it, an end with a door in it, and an end with no entry on it, a solid wall. And we call that a no access or no direct hit fire. And with the thermal imager, they did the 360 size up. They pinned the high thermals in the delta side of the structure. They opened the A division and they put a curtain on it, and then opened the A division door. They didn't allow that flow path to develop. And then they drove the piercing nozzle. I was talking to the rest of the guys here. They drove the piercing nozzle in, and they flowed for about 15 seconds. Our flow meter said we got about 23, 24 gallons that we put in that room, and that was with a couch, an overstuffed chair, and a pallet. And so we had several megawatts of heat in there, and so the bottom line is the nozzle killed it to about 600, under 600. It came back pretty quick, So we had a crew inside, and so we held the crew up. We cooled in front of the crew, and then we had the nozzle go back in. The crew, which was one fire, never felt the second hit, and we went from 600 down to somewhere below 300. The access hallway went down under 200. So, but all that was looking at the thermal imagers, and we had recording ticks on the crew leaders, and then the outside 600 degree went down below 400 in the 300 line. The outside can temperatures where the steel was still 500 degrees plus with the steel, but sheetrock came down quickly. So the point being is that if you can get water or a stream into the fire compartment, especially streams that are not, well, if you can get, let me just say, if you can get a stream in the fire compartment, I don't know of anything else that does any better. That's the bottom line. So if you can go there with a stream and not put a person on that and expose them to the thermals, then I don't know of a better choice you can make. Now, we left the fire department testing and up in the Asheville area. That fire chief has loaded a piercing nozzle on a pre-connect on the hose bed for pulling. They don't have to get it out of the compartment and hook it up or anything. He was an advocate for that. That's going into use in a lot of places now. But what I'm seeing is, now if you go into mini-mac matchings, the fire flows and the things we already know, they didn't go away. They're still there. You got to do the stuff you got to do. Just understand what you're doing to the fire. Anytime you grow the fire, to be able to do your tactic, question your tactic. You need to decay the fire. Any tactic you do needs to decay the tactic if you can. If you're not decaying the tactic, if your tactic is not decaying the fire, then what are you doing accessing that compartment? That's not safe. And now nobody wants to hear that. That's not something that's going to win me the Speaker of the Year award. But the bottom line is that putting that little bit of water into that compartment with that much heat energy, it just went away.
All right, good stuff. I want to get back to a topic, but a comment from Robbie. So Robbie's talking about, it isn't really new science. Lloyd Lehman was talking about this a long time ago. I was learning transitional attack as a youngster at age 16. Nobody is saying stay outside. It does say control vent, coordinate attack, water on fire as quickly as possible. And I think that's a good summary. A lot of what we're hearing in the fire service at kitchen tables is being misinterpreted. I don't disagree with that at all, Robbie. Let's give Robbie the shameless plug, too. Robbie is the guest this week on the Firefighter Training Podcast. We're talking about the Medical Mayday. So if you have not seen that episode or heard that episode as yet, go and download that. Good stuff by Robbie on the Medical Mayday. Now, Joe, the last thing, we haven't got a lot of time, but I do want you to get your quick hit. It was a little bit of off discussion in the chat room about the term penciling, right? So my first knowledge of the term penciling came from the Europeans. It was something we learned in the flashover chamber, those kinds of things. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the term. I am a proponent of putting a little more water than I need to up there. I'm a proponent of flowing a little bit longer than I need to, whether that's right or wrong. Joe, could you shed some light on the term penciling as you would use it? How would you describe it just in its raw form, and why is that different from just opening up the nozzle?
Well, we talk in three terms when we're accessing the fire. We talk in penciling, pulsing, and continuous flow. So you use those as literally like saying, I got a fever, I got sweats, whatever. What you're saying is I've got a reason to pencil. So penciling is the ability, just like a pencil, it's the ability to put some water directly into a spot farther away from you in a solid stream or a cone stream, so that you don't get a lot of conversion in front of you where you are in the place you are. In our test, we look at 5 to 7 feet in front of us at all time. And you've heard me say this. I tell people that's the now area. What's going on right now in front of you, and what are you doing about that space? Because that's the most immediate thermal insult place you got. So if that's okay, and I'm moving down, and I got to go down a hallway and turn right into the fire compartment, I may use a pencil because it's not going to do anything until it gets to the other end and breaks up. So that's pretty much, it does very little effect getting right in front of me, the now space. So that penciling is a direct shot somewhere away from me to create some kind of cooling downstream. So if I got all the flame in a room at a right angle and it's pushing gases out that hallway, into that hallway, and that's pressurizing, and that's the high pressure, and it's coming to the low pressure side, I would pencil in that corner to try to bring the temperatures down so I change the velocity of that off gas. If I slow that velocity down, I slow the temperature down in the fire growth. So it's more than just cooling. If I can bring the velocity down of that smoke, I'm going to bring the fire potential growth potential down. Now, pulsing is more of a now and next kind of deal. It's right on me. I've got gases. I got thermal insult right on top of me. What I want to happen is that to occur. Now, people have talked about, well, you get thermal, you break the thermal stratification, you get the thermal balance. Most of the time when they get this, not always, but a lot of the times when they get this, they're right in the fire compartment. I've got no business for them being in the fire compartment till they bring that down to almost a fuel-limited fire. They just don't have any reason to be in that compartment if they can, on a residential especially, that they can hit from the door of the hallway. They don't need to be there. So if I take a fog nozzle and I got a tremendous amount of heat being generated and I hit it with that, I get expansion, I get a ballast change in that compartment, and all of a sudden that, with no flow path, that's just going to roll over the top of me. And what I feel, they say they get steam burns. I think they get carbon burns. I think they're putting fuel up their skirt, excuse my language. I don't know of a firefighter yet that's turned around for 212 degrees. They don't do it. They burn the shields off of their helmet. The deal is where they're changing the carbon or the polarization. And that's one of the reasons we advocate an enhanced stream, because an enhanced stream has a hydrophilic and a hydrophobic type molecule. In other words, if I've got a heavy dark black smoke, that stream's going to attach, that surfactant is going to attach to that carbon just like it does a piece of wood, because that's what it is. So I'm going to drop temperatures by pulsing into that. And if I drop the temperatures and I access on my environment, not on just temperature, but I access on my environment, then I am safer. So the bottom line is a pulse is a short burst of small droplet stream, hopefully nothing bigger than a 4 millimeter bubble droplet, and then the other is a pencil, is a long shot of a solid stream to somewhere away from me to cause the cooling away from me and stop the fire growth coming towards you. And continuous flow is just that. We recommend in the hallway, we recommend 15 to 25 degrees at the neutral plane, starting there, getting the carpet, the floor, and the off-gassing around us, and then getting into the stream. If you got imminent heat from above you, cool it. So what if the book said go to 1 first? Go to 4 if it's hurting you. That's what you need to do. You need to be able to read that thermal imager. We need to quit saying do patterns, because patterns don't always work. We need to read thermal data. We need to have optical vision. We need to have optical reads that don't tell us something. We can use nozzles and steam to tell us where we are. But if we're doing that I can tell you watt faster with a thermal imager where that water is going to come back from that ceiling or not. And the bottom line is, we're just using caveman tactics when we got better and bigger tools in front of us. That editorial didn't cost you anything, Chief.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it. All right, we got 2 quick comments, and then we're going to put a wrap on it. Tim's comment back when this was shortly after the Lloyd Lehman comment was, yeah, a lot of what Lloyd Lehman said had to do with shipboard firefighting, and again, interesting, correlation. Shipboard firefighting was all about compartments. And I've heard Joe say a couple of times tonight, we're talking about the structural compartments. So point well taken, Tim. I think you're right on. And another good one, thanks for being here, John. I appreciate you always, John, for jumping in. It is the same discussion, solid versus straight. That's what we're talking about. It really is not the nozzle. It's getting water on the fire. Piercing nozzle is just another way, and I think we've reiterated that. That was our exact discussion tonight. So thank you, John, for being out there. So, all right, let's do some quick summary. We're just about at the hour, so we'll do some pretty brief wrap-ups. Rob, where can people find you?
You can find me contributing to firefightertoolbox.com. You can visit my website at facepieceon.com. You can get me on trainingcom, COMM, on Twitter, facepieceon on Twitter. And if you'd like to send an email, it's robertdfling@gmail.com.
All right. You have multiple personalities.
I do.
I'm sensing that. So, Joe, where can we find you? And some of the stuff you talked about tonight, Joe, where can I get some more information about that if I'm a viewer?
Well, you can go to joestarnes.com or killtheflashover.com. Those are the 2 places that most of it are. And if you go to Facebook, we're on Facebook and Twitter. We're on Facebook as Project Kill the Flashover or Kill the Flashover or Joe Starnes Fire and Emergency Services, or Twitter at KTF Burns. So there's a bunch of places. Joe at joestarnes.com will get me an email if you want to send it that way, and I try to answer everything I get, and sometimes not very well, but other times better.
All right, and certainly you can find me at petelam.com. You can find all of the archives of our today.com. Did I just lock up there? I did. There it is. You can find us at firefightingtoday.com, petelam.com, and I encourage you to listen to the Firefighter Training Podcast. So we'll see you next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll continue on some discussion. If you have any thoughts for the program, if there's anything you'd like to see on the program, just send us an email. We'd be happy to talk about the topics you like. And also, if you'd like to be on the panel, just send me an email. We'll get you set up and get you going on Google Hangouts. Very, very powerful tool. So we'll see you next week. And until then, just be careful.